Welcome to Unlocking Your Truth, another podcast by Dr. Lesley Phillips.
Well, hello listeners, and welcome to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and with Corey.
Hello everybody.
And we are broadcasting live on 101.7 FM across the Fraser Valley, and we're actually broadcasting from the unceded territory of the Stolo Nation. If you're a new listener to Unlocking Your Truth, let me explain. Unlocking Your Truth is all about metaphysics and spirituality, and every week on Tuesdays from 7 to 8 Pacific time, we are broadcasting live across the Fraser Valley. You can stream us from civl.ca, and we also stream live on Facebook now from our Awaken Your Psychic Abilities Facebook group. Yay! Yeah, so every week we have a different topic. And we also open up in the second half of the show for listeners to ask questions. And you can literally ask about anything at all and receive a spiritual perspective on what you're asking about. So questions about relationships and career and your own psychic abilities, anything goes really. But before we do that, we always like to have a topic. And tonight's topic has been requested by one of our listeners. And this listener has asked us to do a show on entities and beings. And
I'm a being.
You are. Yes, you are. And you know, it's funny, we've been doing the show for 4 years now, and I don't think we've done lots of shows about spirit guides and angels, but never on the sort of broader landscape of entities and beings. So we thought that would be a really, really good topic to talk about. And so let's start by saying, what are these beings? Because you're right, Corey, you are a being.
Yes, I am. I've been one my whole life.
You have. That's right. So we're all beings. But what our listener is talking about is the type of being that perhaps is a bit of a pest and a bit annoying. So, yeah, she's meaning the kinds of beings that can attack you or can become attached to you. And what she's asked us to talk about is, what are they? Why are they attached to you? How can they attach to you? And what is it within the person that's being attached by a being that might cause them to be there? And what other things can they do while they're there? and how to remove them? So that's basically what we're going to talk about this evening. So let's start a little bit with what they are. And really, we're all beings, but the word entity refers to an energy being, and your soul is an entity, and you are an energy being. And so are angels, and so are spirit guides, and so are ascended masters, and all of those wonderful beings that we talk about a lot on the show. But really, when we're using the term in the context of today's topic, we're talking about malevolent, non-beneficial beings who cause trouble and mischief. And just as there are all kinds of physical humans in the world, there's a vast array of non-physical beings. And each one is on its own journey. And each one is at its own particular stage of evolution, just like people are. And so some of them are in alignment with source energy and serve the greatest and highest good and want the benevolence for all beings, but others are out of alignment, self-interested, parasitic, and, prefer lower, darker energy vibrations. And they can be thought forms, which would be a coalescence of, people having bad thoughts that ends up coalescing together into a kind of a thought form being. They can be beings from other dimensions, beings who are stuck in a lower frequency of creativity and level of operation, which makes them believe they have to control others and feed off their energy for their self-expression. So let's answer the next question.
What's that?
Why do they get attached to people?
Because they're
going
sticky.
on? What's going on there? Because sometimes they do get attached to people, and they might even attack people. Often when we think of psychic attack, it's because we're dealing with a being. And there are various reasons that this can happen. Like I said, some beings are parasitic as a result of having destroyed their home world, as a result of having destroyed their planet. They're basically floating around the universe looking for somewhere to land. And so there are beings, they look a little bit like spiders, or they look a little bit like snakes, and they sometimes make their homes inside humans. So that's one type of being.
Yuck.
And I've removed quite a few of those from people. And others are just, in general, working to keep the planet and humanity in the dark ages, and not to move into the light and the higher vibration. And then others might get attached because there's a personal relationship. And one example of that is that you worked with the being in a past lifetime. You had a spiritual agreement with this being to work together. And either they were in body at that time, or maybe they were not in body at that time, but they were acting as a kind of guide or helper that you worked with. And perhaps you were working together in a certain way, and you've now evolved beyond that. You've decided that you don't want to carry on in the same way, but the being is invested in maintaining the status quo. So you'll get a little bit of a fight on your hand in order to get rid of it, if that's the case. Some beings might be ready to move on themselves, and it's not a problem, but sometimes it is a problem. And then the other one that relates to relationships is that some beings can be associated with people that you know. So oftentimes people might be harboring an entity, and they might be unconscious of it. They might not know about it. But the payback is that somehow this being makes them feel better in some way. So maybe it makes them feel safe because it attacks people when they feel intimidated. And they haven't outgrown that. They haven't learned that they can stand up for themselves and take charge of their own reality. And so this being is there interfering with their relationships. And then, finally, there can be kind of like a miscomprehension about a being. And we did a show 2 weeks ago on spirit guides. We talked a lot about spirit guides and how there are all different levels of evolution in the spirit world. And so, a person may be working with an entity that they believe is a guide, and that the guide is helping them open up spiritually and maybe even channel information. And actually, it's a lower level entity that's tricking them and fooling them, and making them feel like they're special and powerful.
Now, the interesting thing is a lot of people don't believe that they're real, yet they affect people's lives so drastically. And the other interesting thing is people believe will believe in angels, they believe in ghosts, but they won't believe in any alternate type of energies.
Yeah. Well, and these entities or energies, I guess they're associated with the astral realm, because they're low vibration entities, and so the higher up you go dimensionally, and the more you elevate your frequency into the light, then they ain't there anymore. And we'll talk about that a bit more when we talk about how to get rid of them. So the next question that our listener asked was, well, how do they attach? How do they get stuck on you? And they attach in various ways. They might create an energy cord that they attach to one of your chakras.
Those are wicked.
Yeah, it's like a little hose pipe.
or not so little hose pipes. Sometimes they're a little bit bigger too.
Yeah. And a favorite one is the crown chakra, which is the one on the top of your head, because they can manipulate your reality from there. There are also energy channels and other places within the energy system where they tend to connect. They can be present in your energy body, in your energy channels, in your chakras, and even appear to be within, physical places within the body. And so some typical areas are the spine, between the shoulder blades, the back of your neck. But they can be all over. I've had clients who've been really kept on their toes because the being is everywhere throughout their system, and you focus on moving it from one place and it pops up somewhere else and on it goes. And so it can be very difficult. And it can be really difficult to be around somebody who has a being like that, because the being channeled through the other person can actually make your life miserable. And actually, one other possibility for how does it attach to you is that you might pick it up when you're out of body. So you might pick it up in an astral encounter. So if you had a bad dream or you've had a nightmare, and then you feel changed and peculiar afterwards after you wake up, sometimes it could be because you've brought some kind of attachment back with you. All right. So, question number 4 from our listener who's requested that we talk about this is, what do I do? What does somebody do to cause it? And it's true to say that the being could not be in your space if you weren't allowing it to be there. Now, albeit unconsciously. And the primary thing that you do to allow an entity to be in your space is not to own your space. If you're owning your space, if it's your energy in your space, if you're grounded and you're present, then there's no space for something else. Your energy field's your private creative universe. It's meant to be occupied by your unique energy frequency. But if you're not grounded, if you're not in your body, you potentially leave it open to invasion. And, other things like participating in activities that cause you to leave or disassociate from your body can also leave you vulnerable to these types of issues. And that's why when you see somebody who's really got a real drug or alcohol problem, they will often behave strangely and talk strangely. And it can often be because they are possessed by some kind of a being. Their energy has left the building and something else has come in. And then what else might you do to cause such a thing to occur? The classic wounded healer. So being someone who really wants to help and help heal somebody else, somebody who's quite disturbed, helping them but not cleaning out your own energy thoroughly afterwards, you can end up taking stuff on from somebody else.
Yeah, they're like parasites. They just jump from host to host.
Klingons.
Yeah, Klingons. Fleas.
Yes. The other thing is you can actually be born with that relationship already in place. You can have some kind of karmic attachment. Like I was saying before, if it's something spilling over from a past life or a being that you've worked with over many lifetimes, you might come in with that association. And then depending on how how your life journey goes, outgrow it and get rid of it at some point. So not healing yourself can cause vulnerability because these beings are low vibration and they will attach to an energy that is a match to where they're at. So your fear, your pain, your unworthiness, your doubt, and other low vibration feelings, beliefs, energy signatures in your field is what they can attach to, because it's kind of like a vibrational match. And so one of the things in entity removal that it's really important to do is first you move out the being, but then you move out what the being was attaching to. So what belief was the person who was suffering from invasion by this entity, or what energy was in there that it was attaching to? Because then we need to do healing for the person around that particular issue. So that, think of it like a lock and a key, so that the keyhole, the lock's not present anymore for that entity to attach to. So I often like to think of it as a healing opportunity, because it attaches to you. You move it off. You go, what was it attached to? Oh, look, here's some pain from childhood. I'll heal that. Then that's no longer there. And then it attaches somewhere else, and you go, oh, something else I need to heal. Move it off. What's within me that it's sticking to, and I will now transform that. So, next question.
maybe
break?
we
Come
should
back.
get a
Okay.
break first.
Sure. I've got a little bit more to cover in our discussion about entities and beings, but we'll take a short break on the radio show now for some advertisements, and then we will be back. And by the way, you're listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corey. Welcome back, listeners. You're tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corey.
Hello again.
We're broadcasting from CIVL on 101.7 FM. This evening's topic, because this show is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality, is entities and beings. And we spent the first part of the show just talking about what they are and how they can impact you. And now we're going to get on to, well, how do I know if I have one? And what other things might they get up to when they're in your space? And how can I protect myself? And how can I remove them? So how do you know if you've got a being? So I'm going to give you a list of symptoms, if you like. So, and there's no set defined thing that this always means that you have got a being. But they could be experienced as physical pain, like I said, between the shoulder blades, the back of the neck, different places, not being able to think straight, foggy head, your reality is not in sharp definition, you feel disassociated, you feel tired, you feel exhausted, you feel depleted, depressed, low energy, not quite yourself, lack purpose, lack enthusiasm, in a dark mood generally.
Sounds like my brother.
Of course, there can be other explanations for all of the things I just listed. So just because you have one or several of those symptoms doesn't necessarily mean that you do have a being. And there can be other symptoms as well, like acting out of character, being, super judgmental or angry, or so people with beings they can seem to have a Jekyll and Hyde personality, or even sort of like multiple personalities. And so they're nice 1 minute and then they change over a dime to be mean and hurtful. And they don't necessarily know that they're invaded, it just happens. The other thing I would say is that or have a real magnetic personality, that develops a following like a guru or a cult leader or, Hitler or somebody like that. Quite often those people can have beings associated with them that are, they're channeling through their system and through their crown chakra and actually managing to control large numbers of people in the process. So there's not one set way of being able to tell if this is something that's affecting you. But if you suspect that you might have an attachment, then go see an experienced clairvoyant reader, as they will be able to see it and remain neutral and in charge to remove it for you. And I chose the word clairvoyant on purpose, because somebody who is using their clairvoyance is in charge of their reality and is able to see energy. And it is a lot harder for a being to fool and pull the wool over the eyes of somebody like that. Okay, so if somebody's healing more on a, I don't know, an affinity level or a feeling level, I think it's easier to be fooled and tricked. So somebody who's a powerful clairvoyant and able to see and able to work with energy. So our listener said, their next question was, well, what else do they do when they're hanging around in your space? And she was very curious about this, so I will mention it. They can place implants and devices in your energy field that will interfere with your thoughts, emotions, behavior, and more. And I certainly don't want to freak people out or frighten them. Because what I would say is you're more powerful than the being always, right? It takes a lot of power to create a physical body. And if they had the power you had, they'd have their own physical body, and they don't. But anyway, yes, there can be implants and devices that do different things. They can interfere with your thoughts, emotions, behavior, and more. And if this is the case, it's really important that your healer removes everything relating to the being, as they move out the being's energy. But if they don't move out, all the implants and devices that might be there, then they haven't moved it out. And if you don't clear all of that energy, there's a doorway for it to come back in. And like I said before, you also need to clear what is it within the person that it's attaching to. It can fool you. I've known people I've known people in my practice who've come to see me with beings and been fooled. They believed that they would die if the being was removed. They said, you can't remove this being because I will die. I've known people come to me who've had sexual behaviors that were being directed by a being and found themselves doing things that they didn't want to do and yet felt compelled to do them. People doing perhaps more innocent things like going shopping and spending a lot of money, but actually to the degree that it emptied out the whole family bank account. And so they can affect you in different ways, and they can even cause you to completely lose touch with reality. And I've known people who've believed and said things that other people found so strange that they ended up being sectioned, and actually what they were dealing with was a being. All right, we've got 2 more questions, and then we'll open it up to the discussion.
We've got a lot of questions on Facebook.
I'll go fast.
No, you don't have to go fast. Everybody's patient on Facebook. We'll get to everybody's questions, no problem, and some interesting ones.
That's cool. How can I protect myself from getting them is one question, and own your space. Develop yourself, develop your intuition, and heal yourself. Keep your vibration high. If you are being loving and your frequency is high and you are emanating light, they cannot exist within your space because there's no vibrational match. They have a very low frequency. So if you keep your vibration up, then you will be above the frequency band that they're operating in. And like I said, it's also, I just want to make sure that people realize that they are more powerful than these beings are. You have a physical body and they don't. And it takes a powerful, powerful being to create a physical body. And if they were as powerful as you, they'd have their own body instead of taking a ride on someone else's. So you can protect yourself by believing in your light, your love, your power, your strength, your courage. And really knowing that the only power that they have is the power that you give them by not believing in yourself. All right, final question posed by our listener. How can I remove them if I already have them? And what I would say in answer to this question, if you are trained in entity removal, then you wouldn't be asking that question. So if you're asking that question, find yourself a clairvoyant healer who is trained and knows how to do entity removal, or can train you how to be able to manage your own energy and do it for yourself. So I'm trained in doing this work. I've done it on lots of occasions. And by far the safest way actually is for multiple healers to work together, because especially when it is a particularly bothersome being, because there's strength in numbers, and the people who are doing the healing can clean each other out before the session and after the session. Because I've known beings to attack the healer for hours or days before the entity removal session because they don't want to go. And so the healer needs to be strong enough to cope with that and prepared to put up with it and keep on cleaning it out, just in order to be available to clear it out from someone if it's a particularly bothersome being, and not all of them are. And the healer also has to clean themselves afterwards so they don't get infested or attach themselves. And so sometimes the consequence of a 1-hour session with a client to move a being out can have hours and hours and hours of consequence for the healer. And people probably don't realize that. So there we have it.
Very interesting.
That's today's topic: beings and entities of the unpleasant kind.
So we'll start with question number 1.
Yeah.
And that's from Callie. And Callie says, so I was told that I had tall entities that walked with me, but they seemed like protectors. Is that possible? Do positive beings attach? Sounds like guardian angels that she's...
Yeah, so let me be clear. What we're talking about today is non-malevolent beings. And when we use the word attach, what I'm meaning is they are invading your energetic space. They are being disrespectful of your space. They are hijacking your energy. And so, is it possible for you to be accompanied by benevolent beings that are respectful and supportive and loving and there to support and help you? Absolutely, yes, it is. And if you didn't watch our show 2 weeks ago, we did one on the nice beings. But I can see these beings that you're talking about. They feel like possibly Hathor beings to me, and they are beautiful. Yep. They are full of gratitude and love and just wonderful.
Can she communicate with them?
Yeah, she can communicate with them. I think we might have talked about... I'm doing a workshop on communicating with spirit guides next week. I forgot.
Sounds interesting.
I think it's on Wednesday, which I think is the 10th. And so drlesleyphillips.com/workshops. You can sign up for that. And that is all about communicating with your spirit guides and having a direct experience of your spirit guides. Because I always feel the best way is to give people the experience rather than tell them a story of how it's done. Yeah. Because this stuff is experiential, really. But
and once you experience it, it's really neat how easy it is as well.
Yeah. The trick is really, it is in opening your intuition and being able to have those kind of conversations. It's about healing yourself, raising your vibrational frequency so that there's less of a frequency gap between you and these high vibration beings, and having somebody give you a few tips about how to manage your energy and place your consciousness in order to be able to talk to them.
Sure.
We've got time for another question.
Yeah, we've got another one from Nancy.
Yeah.
Nancy says, when I was 13 years old, I was in bed taking a nap and I saw a black entity appear out of my corner of my eye. I was also being sucked into my sheets. It was playing with a yin-yang that it threw at me. I would die. Then there was a loud bang and it disappeared and I could breathe again. Any idea what this was? I suspect the bang was from my guides. You want me to read that again to you?
No, I think I got the gist of it. Well, I'll take a look, Nancy. And so I'm curious, so you were lying in bed and I'm wondering if you were in that semi-conscious state between having been asleep and just waking up. Because sometimes a bang in those moments is actually the astral body coming back into the physical body. That can be like a bang or a humming noise or a whirring. So that's one possibility, but it could have been the being as well. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at Nancy and her interesting experience from when she was 13. Well, I think that this is a case, I mentioned it briefly earlier, that sometimes when you're out of the physical body, in the astral body, when you're asleep at night, you go on all kinds of adventures, most of which you don't remember, and have all kinds of encounters. And it just looks to me like it was an astral entity, and that you'd been interacting with it, and then you were awake and still aware of it, and the astral plane has a different set of rules than the physical plane. Okay, so you can't really die on the astral plane, for example. So that would be my answer, Nancy. I think that it's that. Oh, she says yes, I was in that state. So yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you were you'd been having the experience on the astral, and you were starting to wake up, and it seeped into your consciousness, and so then you remembered the being, and then bang, back in the body completely. I think we've got time for one more before the break.
Okay, let's go. Okay, so Helena says, I've had something touch me from the back many times. And this is from Helena. I do get a glimpse of someone in the room, just a glance. I get that in most places I visit. And then she says, okay, what she's talking about is not on topic, but that really doesn't matter. So we'd be happy to...
Well, it may or may not be on topic, depending on... So you wherever you go to places and you get this funny feeling of something touching you from the back. And I'm assuming what you're referring to is not the same as... Because we often have this recognition when somebody's staring at us, don't we? Right? We feel it like, oh, somebody's staring at us. So I think it's something else here. So let's take a look. So I am not 100% sure about this one.
She says it's, yes, it's something else.
Well, the first thing that I'm seeing is that there's, ask her is it between your, where on the back? Is it between the shoulder blades? Because I'm seeing some kind of energy thing happening between the shoulder blades. But I'm not seeing a being. So... And also, because she said it happens in sort of anywhere she goes, that's kind of very broad, so it's not happening in a specific circumstance. It is in between the shoulder blades. Huh. Well, that's a common place for beings to attach to, I'll say that. Yeah. I'll say that. Yeah. It feels to me like that I'm seeing some sort of very fine energy cords that are connecting in that area. And I'm not seeing a being, though, which is very curious, but they're attached to something somewhere. And why, as it is let's just look and see whether you've actually got a being that's... Because it almost feels to me like it's like there's a little tug about, like, pay attention or, be aware. I'm not seeing any malevolent negative being, but I am seeing something going on.
She says, specifically, I do not know who, like my mom after passing, but other times I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so maybe it's different. I was trying to look for one answer to this, but then you're saying, it happens all the time in different rooms, and now you're saying, well, sometimes it's this and sometimes it's that. So what I will say is that area is an area of sensitivity in everyone, actually, that beings can attach to. And you actually don't really want them to do that. But probably what's happening is that you're just picking up on that connection going on. So that would be my answer for that one. I think we should go for a break, and then we'll take some more questions after the break. So you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corey, and we're broadcasting on CIVL on 101.7 FM, and we're going to play a few ads, and we'll be back. Welcome back, listeners. You are tuning in to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corey. Unlocking Your Truth is a talk show about metaphysics and spirituality, and we're at that time during the show where we are taking listeners' questions. And listeners, you can call us on the studio line, which is 604-504-7442, extension 4142. 604-504-7441, extension 4142. And of course, if you are watching on the live stream on Facebook, our Facebook group, which is called Awaken Your Psychic Abilities, you can type it in the chat box. So listeners, if you want to have an interactive experience with us, join the Facebook group, Awaken Your Psychic Abilities.
I think I'll do that.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Okay, we've got a question for Radist.
Yeah.
And she says, since I have, I got to press the C more here. Since I have spirit guides, do they not do anything about it if such a being attaches to me? Maybe try to make it go away or alert me, or at least somehow. Or maybe they are okay with it, or just like, whatever, the more the merrier. Yeah, they got a sense of humor, yeah.
So, on planet Earth, there's a thing called free will. So every being that's alive every human has free will. And so your guides will help you if you ask them to help you. So yes, they can help you, and definitely ask them to. But if they are the kinds of high vibration guides that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago on the show, they will respect your space and they will respect your free will. And also, don't forget, you've got your human consciousness, right, which has its way of perceiving reality, but there may be a higher reason from a higher level of your being that wants you to go through this experience. You might be learning to own your space. You might have decided you really want that experience, and you can't, because of the duality on planet Earth. This is how we learn. We go to a negative polarity in order to sort of balance out and learn and stretch ourselves further and expand. And so the guides might actually be helping you by not stepping in, because on a higher level of your consciousness, you're wanting to go through that experience. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, we do, but it looks like I've lost them here.
Oh,
here, I've got one from Belinda. There's one from Olivia, and I seem to have lost it. You could look it up. Somehow I went back and forth.
Or Olivia, type it in again.
Well, it was a long one. Just scoot up a little bit there, Dr. Lesley. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I don't know what I did, but I screwed that up.
Oh, I found it. Oh, no, I haven't. So I'm just looking for Olivia's question. Oh, here we go. When I was younger, I used to be more receptive of spirits and I used to see them. And now that I'm older, I haven't seen them, but feel... Oh. Okay. But feel... Sorry, I just pressed the wrong thing. But feel that something is around me. I have constant ringing in my ears. And I heard that is a sign that they're trying to communicate with you. Okay, so two things there. Having awareness when you're younger that goes away when you're older, and ringing in the ears. So ringing in the ears can be a symptom or a sign that your clairaudience is opening up. So clairaudience is one form of intuition. It's a type of psychic ability. It means clear hearing. And it is the ability to hear vibration. You know, clairvoyance is the ability to see. So with our clairvoyance, we can see as spirit, we can see the spirit guides. With our clairaudience, we can hear them. So it is a sign that your clairaudience is starting to open up and you are starting to pick up on those subtle signals. And what those subtle signals are, it could be your spirit guides, yes. And so I know lots of people that's how their clairaudience start, and mine did as well. And so that's a really common sign that that's happening. And then also, it's a very common experience for people to have had an awareness of their psychic abilities when they were younger, and then as they get older, not so much. And there can be a few reasons for that, but one of the most common ones is when we're really young, you know, when we're born, we're sort of straight from spirit. And then we're born into the physical world, and so we move from a state of pure spirit where our communication is through our psychic abilities. They are how spirit communicates. And then we come into a body and we have to orient to the physical world, and we use our physical senses in the physical world. So there's a transition that moves the consciousness away from the psychic abilities more into the physical. But very young kids are still in touch with the spiritual communication. And then the more they get programmed by culture and adults, the more it often gets turned down, especially if they're being brought up in a culture that doesn't believe in this stuff, like the Western culture and the Western education system. You know, it's sort of like focus on your intellect, be clever, you do your English and your maths and whatever else it is. And so people learn, well, what I'm validated for is my intellect, and I'm not really validated for seeing things that aren't there that no one else can see, or hearing things talking to me that no one else can hear. And so people deliberately turn it down. And so those are some of the reasons why that can happen. But the good news is, because you've already experienced it that way in this body, you can regain it, you can reclaim it. And in actual fact, if you do check out drlesleyphillips.com, my signature reading is called a Psychic Ability Blueprint. And it's based around that principle where we look at your unique profile of intuitive abilities when you were born and your unique profile of intuitive abilities now, and we look at how have they changed and have you turned them down, and if you turned them down, why did you? And also how they relate to your life purpose. So you can reclaim them.
Well, that sounds exciting.
Yeah.
So we have one more question here.
Sure.
And I think there's a comment from Callie, who said, I have gone on your site and just pulled a duality card. Thanks for explaining that. My life was a terror lately. I was blessed to be unscathed. Well, that's great. So Belinda has a question.
Sure.
Belinda says, hi, smiley face. I'm getting electric type feeling on my right temple that moves around my head. I get these at all different times and have been told that it's spirits trying to communicate, but it's pretty constant most every day.
All right, it could be, but it might not be. So I have another theory, so I'll take a look.
Just a theory?
Right temple. But it moves around, she said, right?
Yeah, I'm getting electric type feeling on my right temple and it moves around my head. I get these at all different times and I've been told that it's spirits trying to communicate. That's pretty constant.
Yeah, so my alternate explanation is that it might be your Kundalini energy. And to me, that looks like what it is, because a symptom of that can often be kind of like an electrical phenomenon, amongst other things. And so the Kundalini is basically life force energy that it'd be interesting to find out a little bit more things like, how old you are and when it started and what was going on in your life. But there are, let's say, there are chakras around the head, right? So we all kind of learn about the main 7 chakras, but there are more than 7 chakras. There are lots of them. And so there are 8 chakras around the head, like a little, crown of thorns or something around your head. And the Kundalini energy, when it awakens and travels up the spine and spreads out through energy channels in the head. And there's a relationship between these chakras and that Kundalini energy. And so when I look at your head, I'm seeing this kind of electrical effect that just makes me think about, Kundalini. And it could be, the Kundalini as it starts to flow, clears its own channels, makes its own way. And what it does is it basically spiritualizing the body. On the one hand, it underpins all life, its life force energy. On the other hand, we can awaken it and amplify it and go through cycles of awakening under the influence of the Kundalini, which can be consciously directed. And so for me, that's what I'm seeing, like this electrical. And ever hear of when they draw pictures of saints, they have a halo around their head, and that's actually representing the Kundalini energy having flowing through the head channels, or Medusa with the snakes in the head, for example. And so that's kind of what I think is going on. I'm not seeing any beings, but that kind of electrical energy can sometimes be associated with beings, and sort of like a transmedium type energy. But I'm not seeing it going on at your crown chakra. I'm seeing it going on around this ring of chakras around the head. So that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and that's just about it for today. We got a couple minutes to sign up. Let them know about let our listeners as well know about the card pull.
Oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
That was brought up.
Yeah, so when you go to my website, drlesleyphillips.com, there's all sorts of really cool things on there that you can play with for free. And one of them is you can do a DIY card reading. So if you go to drlesleyphillips.com and you look at the tab that says, I think it says free or free stuff, and a bunch of different options will come down. And one of them is DIY card reading. And if you click that, you can have a card pulled at random from my card deck. So that's pretty cool. You can try that out. There's also a competition that we run on a regular basis to win a reading with me. And that's on that free tab. And there's also a free downloadable starter meditation kit. And I think there's something else that's free, isn't there, Corey?
It's all kinds of free stuff.
I can't think of what it is now. Oh, I do a webinar called Awaken Your Intuition on a fairly regular basis, and that's also something you can sign up for, although I'm not exactly sure when the next one I'll be doing of that. Yeah, so...
I have one more comment.
Sure.
Hang on, just let me read this. I'm bringing my computer next time so I can type faster. Typing on the telephone it sucks. So this is from Olivia, and Olivia says, that's true. My family is a strict Christian family, and having abilities is considered against God and of the devil. So I think that could have been one of the reasons it's closed up. However, after my mother passed away, I did some soul searching, and I just felt that I needed to find more. And the path for me and the ringing became more. And so now I'm trying to work on my clairaudience and try to communicate with my guides. Well, That's great. I was just saying to her that I come from that type of background as well. And it's it takes time. It could take years to get over that brainwashing that we've gone through.
Yeah. When you start to heal that ringing in the ears, you can end up hearing just some beautiful, beautiful music of the spheres, the angelic realm, like unearthly music, which is beautiful. Well, I think
That's
it's
the time
to end the show, unfortunately. Listeners, you've been listening to Unlocking Your Truth with Dr. Lesley and Corey. We are here every Tuesday from 7 to 8 Pacific time on CIVL on 101.7 FM, live streaming from civl.ca and from our Facebook group now, which is called Awaken Your Psychic Abilities. Please join. We'd love to.
Stay tuned for those interviews. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us. You've been listening to another Unlocking Your Truth podcast by Dr. Lesley Phillips. For more information, go to her website at drlesleyphillips.com. That's drlesleyphillips.com, where you can ask questions or send her an email, and there's many free gifts on there for you as well. You can also find the questions that were asked during this show at the website on our free card reading podcast page, where you'll find a full list of them. Come back again.